Welcome back to our market special, Samvat 2074. We are in conversation with three special gentlemen, and we are trying to understand what the nature and texture of the market is going to be from here as we look ahead. Manish, let me sort of come to one sector, which is the evergreen sector, consumer durables, right? I mean, sure. Do you see opportunity there? The comparison which is made is always how many products does China are sold in China and how many are here?
Yeah, let me pick that theme. I've spoken about this very often, that in the late 90s, I remember when we used to do our numbers, we saw India and China selling the same number of cars, which was roughly around 1 million. We were under 1 million, they were about 1 million. 15 years later, you fast forward, China is up to 27 million cars. It's the largest car market in the world. And the average car is sold at a price point which is 3x of India. So while we may be, say, at the Maruti Wagon-R, they are at a Toyota Corolla or Altis equivalent, which means it's a 30x bigger market than us. The difference was, as you got per capita income up, there was an explosion in that market. If you apply that same yardstick to whether you take washing machines as another example and proxy, they were between washing machines, fridges, and air conditioners, they were between 4 to 11% penetration. They are today north of 95% penetration in all these items. Now, when you take 1 billion plus people and you go from a 4%, 10% penetration to a 95 penetration, you can imagine what the numbers are. And if that journey lies ahead of us in the next 10 or 15 years, why is the market so excited that they're giving 30, 40 multiples to our consumer durable companies or to our consumer durable financing companies is predicated on this, that we will get these levels of per capita income to start inching up. That we may be somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 today. China has reached 5,000, but as the journey unfolds and we hopefully create more jobs, more employment and more prosperity with this 8-9% GDP growth, you get that kind of explosion. And that's really the whole operating leverage story of India. Honestly, I don't think people are coming to India to buy oil and gas, metal, infrastructure companies. They're really coming here for the consumer. And that consumer has to be unleashed, and it's being held back in some form. Hopefully now with this whole digitization, getting the formalization of economy, you start creating that income levels for people to actually experience that. So the real bull market of India, in my opinion, will be that. What we're seeing now is really like a precursor to hopefully, that story unfolding.
We're just not able to break that barrier as consumer experts tell us.
And that log scale is the difference, because it doesn't compound 12, 13, 14%. Then it compounds 40% CAGR for 10 years in a row.
We are still selling shampoos only for 400 million people.
That's right.
And even the cell phone, you may have 1.3 billion or 1.2 billion SIMs, but you have actually only 750 million users.
I mean, just to quickly put a picture in people's minds, I describe it as we have 2% of India, which is like Australia per capita, $25,000. You have 18% of India, which is like Philippines, which is at 1,500, 1,800 kind of number. 80% of India is actually at $300 per capita. And that's the whole argument for universal basic income, subsidies and so on. Unless you can lift that mass up, you will not get this whole consumer delight, because we are still playing within 20% of India.
Madhu, what is the chance that we are able to do that? I mean, we keep speaking about jobless growth in India, which is difficult. I mean, it's difficult to make that argument because there are no job numbers. Do you think that we will get to this market expansion, and how will you play it?
I think we will get. The question is only of time. See, Lata, we have been seeing there has been so much skepticism in last 25 years about India growth story. The government, so many governments have changed, so many global events have happened. Oil prices have gone from 30 to 150 and come back to $30. And there has been a Kargil, there has been Pakistan, there has been China. So there has been, it's not...
So you will still play the consumption story the way Manish is saying?
I think, yes, I would. The question is that can I get a company to really play with? And is it cheap enough for me to protect my downside? See, so I am saying the beauty of this is like, you could have bought all these themes. Let's say you could have bought the best company in India and lost 90% of your corporate capital if you bought Infosys in 2001.
That's true.
So the question is, what cycle are we? Can we get this company? Can we get it the right price? But there is no doubt in my mind that this theme is going to get played out, and we will be a $6 to $7 trillion economy. The question is whether we will be in 7 years or we will be in 10 years.
Okay. Well, Manish, let me ask you some more recent controversial questions. Is there a scope for a rate cut, and how will you play it as an investor?
So Lata, you know my views on this about interest rates as well as currency in India, that we are playing by a playbook, which is, in my view, the textbook we all grew up reading. Post 2008, the guys in the West have played by a new rule book, which is unleash money, financially repress, return on money, make money so cheap that you revive the kind of dying horse. We have played by the right rules in one sense, that let's keep money tight. But if you keep money tight when the world is unleashing, you've put yourself at a disadvantage. Then in that you say, this is the moment in life I choose to go and clean up my banking sector. It's the right thing, maybe at the wrong time. Similarly, like you said, demonetization, right thing, wrong time. So we did a series of things which in a sense was structural. They will have long-term beneficial impact. But in the short run, you take all that pain. Now, is that short run 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? I don't know the answer to it. But certainly if you're a businessman in India and you can borrow at 2-3% in the world, why on earth would you borrow to put up anything in India at 10%? If real interest rates in the world are completely obliterated, it doesn't exist. India is determined to give a 2% real return on capital. You've put yourself at a disadvantage. And if you keep crying that there is no revival of investment cycle, the law of economics would have demanded that you let the rates go down so much that people start drawing the money instead of only worrying about one segment, which is the saver. And at the same time, you've put a lid on how much foreign capital can come into the debt market in India. So you want to control the currency, you want to control the interest rates, and then we complain about there's a growth problem. I think between North Block and Mint Street, they have to figure out, where we want to take the country, while the Chinese dragon is galloping away. The whole predication of the Chinese growth was, we need to create jobs. If you need 12 million jobs a year, like Prashant and I was speaking, it's 10 times the size of the Indian army needs to be created every single year. If you can't get that going, you can keep having nice, neat and tidy banking sector, but you won't have an economy left over here. So it has to get recapped. We have to get interest rates much lower. Credit flow has to become easier. This whole lending to SME through GST network, getting the CIBIL scores for the retail, this economy is not yet financially digitized enough. So there's a long way to go.
I would say that if Manish is right, don't worry about valuation. Then we are very cheap.
And as you said, the Prime Minister may privatize, right? The banks, if they're aapke muh mein ghee shakar.
Okay, well, final questions to you. Manish, is the downside of this market protected? I mean, we've been constantly, Madhu, we're constantly getting support at that 9,700 mark. Would you say that's more or less?
So I would say, I would not like to put a number. I would say I don't see a more than 10% downside to this market. So let's say worst case you could go to somewhere 9,000, 9,200. But for that also some big shocker external event has to happen. See, the story is rolling on. Today people are wanting to put money. So there is, and valuation itself has never been a reason for the market to correct. I was a student at that time, I saw 98 to 2002, that what I sold my shares at 25 P multiple, the biggest money was being made from 25 P multiple to 150 P multiple. So valuation itself is never a reason for markets to correct. At least that is, history has proven that. So you need an external event to play out if the big correction has to happen. Maybe it is Korea, maybe it is something else, or maybe some disruption, some disrupt taking out of liquidity, as Manish was saying, by the central banks in the world. But that also immediately it cannot correct the market. So I think we're on a nice bull run. Let's enjoy it. Why worry about correction right now?
Manish, quickly, I mean, same question to you.
No, I think our guru is Warren Buffett, who said it very well. There is dilemma because interest rates are the force of gravity which decide valuation. And he expressed it as, if interest rates are 1% higher in the world 3 years from now, the markets will look terribly cheap today. If interest rates are 3% higher in the world 3 years from now, the markets today would have been terribly expensive. Will it be 1% or 3%? I don't have the answer. The master doesn't. But that's what you have to watch very carefully.
All right. Well, actually, we're out of time, or we would have drawn Akash also into this conversation. Akash, Manish and Madhu, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your words of wisdom on Samvat's 2074. And to all of you, many thanks for watching. Have a great Samvat 2074 yourselves.